Sampath, thank you so much for doing this. Really means a lot to me and to everybody in our ecosystem. How important it is to get this opportunity to sit down with you and chat about variety of topics. And I know how important your time is. So we're going to keep it very quick, very snappy.
Manish, I'm very happy to be here. And as always, great to see you again.
Thank you, Sampath. And the first question that comes to my mind is, aren't we living in arguably one of the most disruptive times in general, but specifically from the industry that you lead? What's your state of mind today in terms of telecom and disruption?
There's a saying that says there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. I feel like we are in the second part of that, where decades worth of progress is happening in the space. So for us in the telco space, look, two big things. The first is there's always a lot of demand for our product. Mm-hmm. I mean, people will not leave home without their phones or their tablets or their watches. Same with businesses, connectivity is super important. So there's good fundamental demand for it. But on the other hand, what we are also finding is people also want quality. They want quality, they want to be connected all the time. So that's a really important trend that we are leaning into very hard. Also, we find customers want transparency, they want choice, they want control. Not things that are new, but new to this category primarily. So I think that's one. The second is AI. I think AI is one of those technologies where what's available in the labs is way ahead of what's being deployed in the field. I think there's opportunity over the next decade to see changes. I don't think change will happen in months or in quarters or even years. You're going to see multi-year change happen. But I think the telco space will be supremely impacted by it, both as a part of the ecosystem, because you're going to have to move these bytes around.
Yeah.
And two is what it does to our own operation. So those are the two things that I think are pretty big changes going on right now.
Particularly how you yourself consume it. And of course, we'll talk about AI because I know how profound your views are about AI in terms of how it can be used, or for that matter, like you just alluded to, how it is not being used today. But before we go there, one thing that I have always looked at your career, in a very, not just an admirable, but very intrigued by the kind of canvas that you've painted on. You've looked at the business, the enterprise world. You're now leading the consumer space. I'm sure there are many insights that you've garnered and captured in understanding how customers and consumers both buy, behave, time to time. If you don't mind sharing with us, because at these times of changes, it's important to understand what's in the mind of that somebody who's writing that check. What are few of those things that you would be happy to share with us of your learnings on the consumer behavior or customer behavior that you've learned that impacts your leadership today?
Look, I think the first thing is the customer is always the king. You're not the boss, I'm not the boss, the customer is the boss. And sometimes people try and justify it, the customer actually means this. No, she was very clear what she wants. She's told you in English, she's told you in 7 other languages, you have to take it. Same with B2B buyers, they're very clear on what they want. I think companies still struggle to read consumer behavior, not because they can't read the behavior, they choose to not understand what the customer is saying. It's an active choice. So you can decide to do nothing about what customers tell you, but at least it's important that you understand what they say. In our space, for example, in the consumer side, they say they want transparency, they want choice, and they want control. Very simple. You don't need to be a PhD in telco to figure this out. But almost 90% of the offers out there neither give you transparency, neither give you control, neither give you choice. So I think leaning customer impact has been a very important thing for me, the first part. The second is how you arrange and vitalize teams within. I think teams have infinite capacity to deliver. You just have to tell them what to work on. So prioritization is supremely important. When everything is important, nothing is important. So one of the things I have in any job I do is I can only do 4 things at a time. I have 4 priorities. I lay them out in the beginning of the year. I never change them through the year. In fact, currently I've had the same priorities for 2 years. We made a small pivot this year. So prioritization, and it's ruthless because, a lot of times people add things to prioritization, but the more you add to it, the less prioritized it gets. For a company our size, like my business is $105 billion, I only have 4 priorities. And it's relentless, and there are hard trade-offs we make. So that's another pretty important technique I use to drive change in this. The third piece is you have to be extremely curious about the business. You have to go down rabbit holes. And one of the things that happens in today's world is you're so algorithmically read on what information you get, it doesn't let you go down rabbit holes. So for example, in our company, there's an issue, I'm saying with activation. I go down all the way really deep as to why that's happening. And in the process, I learned 5 other things along the way.
Sure.
So those are 3 things. Listen to the customer. She's almost always right. It's pretty clean. Second is just rapid prioritization to very few things and difficult trade-offs. And the third is you have to be extremely curious. Otherwise, you can't adapt and do so many different things.
Sure, no, spot on. I think this whole notion of curiosity, I think leads me to, a topic that obviously I'm really here to chat about, AI. Right? I mean, let's address this big elephant in the room. Curiosity is leading to innovation. However, it's almost sounding at this point that we have a solution, we just don't know what the problems are that we need to solve. And something that in the telco industry we have seen in the past as well. We've always had cutting edge technologies, and then we have gone to find what the killer apps are. But since we spoke at length about consumer and about her knowing what she wants very, very clearly, do you think customer experience is one space where maybe the greatest impact of AI will be from your vantage point?
I think AI is the only deflationary tool I have in my toolkit right now. Because over the last 20 years, labor productivity, at least in America, has largely been driven by offshoring, outsourcing, as well as what I call Moore's law, technology factor reduction. I think all of those have kind of run its course right now.
Yeah.
So over the next 20 years, the only deflationary tool I have is AI. Because everything else in the economy is inflationary. There's going to be an energy transition that's going to be inflationary. We're going to have to take care of an aging population that is inflationary. We're going to invest more in defense, that's inflationary. So everything is inflationary. AI is literally the only deflationary tool we have in our business going forward. So I think that's one thing. The second is the gap between what's deployed and what's available is massive. So I think AI has a little bit of a product manager problem. They have all these engineers developing stuff, but no product manager to take it and put it in the right swim lanes and decide what problem it solves. It's back to your question. If everything looks like a nail if you have a hammer, I feel like AI is a little bit going down that path if you don't get on it right now. CX definitely is a great use case for us. I think a couple of use cases. One is when you call into a customer care center, it's still a painful process. In a perfect world, I don't want anyone to call in. I would love to chat with them, but when they have a complaint, we should have solved it earlier. AI is definitely a powerful tool in digital as well in our stores, but I think there's a lot more work to get done before AI can be deployed at scale.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And for example, one of the first things I did, having taken over 6 months ago, is we said, let's bet big on data. Because without stitching all kinds of enterprise data together, one will not be able to realize the full potential of this phenomenal tool available at our disposal now, which is AI.
Data is very, very important to us. We just launched a product called Personal Research Assistant. When you go into a store or call into call center, the rep has to go through 10, 20,000 PDF documents to get to a certain answer. You put all that in a Gen AI format and they can put 3-4 prompt words and they get an answer. Extremely good. But I spent 80% of my time fixing the underlying data. All my data was in PDF files. It was in nested tables. It was a nested table that links to other nested tables. We had to blow all of that up, make it into flat files, and then we could actually do Gen AI on top of it.
Yeah.
So I think there's everyone thinks AI is just you go, you put it into a thing and it starts working the next day. It's not, it's tough yards. And it's fine. Look, this was similar to all the technology that came before us, but it's hard work. And I think people have to just be resilient, but also understand things like this take time to deploy at scale.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Now, we also spoke about something earlier, which is the AI as the only deflationary tool available. It also leads me to a question around skills, jobs. What's your perspective on what kind of skills that need to be developed in an AI economy or in an AI world? Or for that matter, what are the kind of jobs that we believe may be in more demand? Do you see from your perspective a little clarity on that vector yet? Or maybe we are still evolving as we speak?
Yeah, so look, I'm an accountant by education. I can do your taxes, by the way. I know it's tax season now, so I'm happy to help you with your taxes. I'm an accountant. When VisiCalc came out in the 70s, people thought accountants are all going to lose their jobs. There were, I think, 400,000 odd accountants in the country. They're all going to lose their job. There are now 1.6 million of us. We have VisiCalc, we have spreadsheets, we have ERP systems, and yet there are 4 times more accountants than there were back then. So I think the nature of our job changes. We don't do bookkeeping, but we do audit, we do control, we do projections, we do financial management. So very different nature of jobs. AI is no different. There will be some jobs that will go away. But step one for AI is it automates tasks. It doesn't automate jobs. I think, so over a period of time when you keep automating tasks, you will require fewer people, but it will take a while to work its way through. I think this is no different. It gives an opportunity for people to reskill. A lot of frontline jobs they think are going to get impacted in the space, but I think we are pretty far away from that. I think there's an opportunity for people to lean in, learn, and get good at using this technology. It will give them more opportunities. For example, in customer care, people who work there, or any BPO function, they can move to understanding customer needs better, getting better at selling. Their role changes, but their job remains.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, thank you for offering to do my taxes. If I do ever make money, I'll come to you. But
you can use the 1040 easy. It's pretty easy on that.
But I do need your help on something, and that is, if you could tell me your fitness trainer, would love to look like you, and if you could also tell me the name of your fashion designer,
okay.
Would love to have that style question going forward. But okay, coming back, Sampath, I somehow don't. I know that we don't have enough time, but I don't want to leave the AI question yet till we address one thing. And this is coming back to the first one, which is our industry, your industry that you preside over. It's also heavily regulated, right? For a right reason, and for all the reasons that we know. How does this juxtaposition of regulation and yet AI, which is so democratic in nature, and yet this whole notion of ethical, responsible AI is something that we still don't know, right? In many cases, it almost seems like the thieves are going to do their jobs and then the regulation might come in. How do you think about all of this? I mean, how much of this bothers you at this point?
Yeah, Manish, I'll take a slightly different nuance on this. These are frontier technologies. No one knows where the next innovation is going to come from. It's on an unpredictable path. You saw that with back all the way to the steam engine. You saw that with electrification. You saw that with the digital, with the internet coming. You saw that with high-level connectivity with 5G. You're seeing that with AI. These are unpredictable technology. I don't know what the S-curve is going to look like. Anyone who claims they know what the S-curve is going to look like is making shit up. So you actually don't know what it looks like. So when you have technologies that move so fast, I think we should spend less time trying to figure out what damage it can do and more time into it, how do we extract more value from it.
Of course.
That's why I get very nervous when countries, others start putting huge regulation, AI. Before the AI actually comes, we have the law on AI.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to balance the two very well. In terms of ethical AI, look, at Verizon, we have a human in the loop approach. We always put a human before anything goes out, so he or she can check where it does. As time progresses, I get good comfort on it. We may do less of that, but right now, humans in the loop always.
Yeah.
We have an AI governance council that looks at where inputs come from, when outputs go from. But at a very basic level, I think we maybe do a little overdo this ethical AI thing. Nobody talks of ethical COBOL or ethical C++ or ethical Java or ethical Python. If someone wants to do something not cool, they don't need AI to do this. They can just do it themselves. So I think it's important to balance what good it can do, harness that, move with speed, versus put all this regulatory environment that all it'll do is going to slow people down, and it's also going to pick winners. You don't want an environment where winners are picked by regulation.
Yeah.
You want it where winners are picked by innovation and the ability to solve customer needs.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit of a minority in this space, but I think AI has way more upside than downside, and we got to lean in head first into
Absolutely. I mean, I think you've always been progressive with your thoughts on some of these things. I vividly recall our chats around 5G, for example, back in the days. And I think you've been very consistent on that. And you spoke about the word human. So I guess this is that almost the last section of this chat where I want to talk about the human in you, the leader in you. I have studied your career for the last several years and how amazingly you have traversed different roles. even within Verizon, right? I mean, 7 different roles just in the last few years. I mean, how did you develop this ability? And going back to a game that you and I are very staunch supporter, how did you build these all-rounder skills, right? Pretty much, this deftness in managing, switching on into a new area, having switched off from something else not too long ago, strategy, products, business, consumer, technology. I mean, you pretty much moved a vast range of things. How did you really, what is it that is so innately different that you have done that some of us can learn from?
Look, I think India needs a few more all-rounders.
We are talking about.
As we head into a Champions Trophy, I do think India needs more all-rounders, but we'll leave that.
Are we winning? Is India winning?
India's winning.
Okay.
India's got a good team. I think it's a good mix of folks who are experienced, but a lot of youngsters who come in. I think the England series shows that we have good momentum coming.
I might have one more question on cricket towards the end.
Look, I think back to this all-rounder piece. Part of being an all-rounder is you're going to have to be good at everything, but you got to have to spike on one thing. Even if you look at some of the best all-rounders in the world, they're good batsmen, they're good bowlers, they're great fielders, but they always spike on one thing. And you can pick what you spike on. For me, it's the ability to take vast amounts of data and make decisions quickly. That's the thing I spike on. I enjoy it, I practice it, I hone my skills on it. And I ask people, you got to spike on one thing. You can't be great at everything.
Yep.
You have to be good at many things and then awesome at one thing. So for me, it's this one thing that I play. The other thing that I'm spending a lot of time is how to lead people. Look, till a couple of years ago, I never led people. I had very small teams. It was mostly an intellectual strategy kind of environment. But what I tend to find is when you lead people, you don't have to have the best answer to everything. You just have to create the right framework and then let people figure out how to do next. Also, I spend a lot of time on taking friction out of a process. When you have large teams, everyone wants to do the right job. Everyone wants to kill it. Everyone wants to ace it. But sometimes there's organizational friction, policy friction, technology friction. So any time I have, I try and take friction out of the process, and that really helps with that. And the fourth is curiosity. When you jump between so many different things in the span, and I've been very lucky to do that, you have to be extremely curious. You have to go down these rabbit holes. You got to spend inordinate amount of time studying different fact patterns, reading, and it doesn't have to be just in the industry. More than half of the good ideas I get for my job have nothing to do with telecom. They come from other industries, they come from history, they come from politics. So just the ability to have a wide angle, be a sponge, absorb. These are a couple of the things I rely on, but it's also a lot of hard work. When you move from function to function, you have to just spend that time upfront learning it. So it's a fair amount of hard work as well.
Sure. I mean, your answer is almost like an executive summary of a book in terms of leading.
I promise I will never write a book on this topic.
Yeah. I'm not believing you in that.
No, I hope you don't buy it, because I will never write a book on it.
Well, we'll wait and watch. And then, I mean, I think at some point, because maybe we can have a bet on that, on both, whether India is winning the Champions Trophy or whether you will write a book on. I think we will have a chat on that. So, but I want to go a little deeper into this, maybe with you sharing, if you don't mind, some learnings that you have had that you believe you were successfully able to impart onto your teams from a leadership standpoint. Some scenarios, some anecdotes that you would be happy to share with us that made you go, wow, I'm happy. I'm happy that this happened in my team.
Look, I think 3 things there. The first is consistent messaging. One of the things I work very hard on, and I'm not always successful, is consistent messaging. People think to appear smart, you have to say different things every time. When you're running a large company like I do at Verizon, you have to be extremely consistent in your messaging, because you may have said it 100 times, but the person in front of you may have only heard it once. So it's very important you have consistent messaging. And it kind of goes down an organization very well. If you have inconsistent messaging at the top, it amplifies very poorly down. And then people down the line don't know what they're working on, what their priorities are. So I think that's really important for people to do, is consistent messaging, use the same language, use the same visuals, and you keep the same logic flow and industrial logic every time you talk and communicate. Unless, of course, it's wrong and then you change it. But if it's right, you got to be super consistent with that. The second one is friction. I think I spoke about this earlier. Large companies, people always want to do the right thing. Something comes in the way. It's your job. And I've spent a lot of time with my teams to take friction out of the process.
Yeah.
What are you doing to take friction out? Is the role responsibility not clear? Are the budgets not clear? Are the KPIs not clear? You take friction out. The third one is this concept of decision making as an art. One of the first things I do when I get into a new group is I watch how decisions get made.
Yeah.
I sit back, I watch how decisions get made. And it tells me everything I need to know about the organization. The people, the talent, the process, by just following decision-making cycles. So for me, if I'm able to streamline decision-making and my teams are able to streamline decision-making under them, you get a much high-performing organization than before. And I have a simple framework for decision-making. I have, like a true ex-consultant, it's a 2x2 box. On one axis, I have what I call one-way decisions and two-way decisions. One-way decisions are things once you make, it's very difficult to put it back. Like something I say to my wife, I can never take it back. It's out there in the world and I'm going to pay for it for the rest of my life. Then there are two-way decisions. For example, you're doing a pricing, a promotion. We can make those changes quite quickly. Then on the other hand is small dollar value and high dollar value. And each of those four boxes has a very different framework. For example, decisions that are low dollar value and one way, you shouldn't make it because it's so low that it doesn't have an impact on the company. Why take a risk and do it? I spend all my time on high dollar value decisions that are one way because these are things like new markets to get into, new customers to go after.
Almost irreversible.
Exactly. That is irreversible decisions you do. Things that are low dollars and reversible, someone on my team can make it, I'll be fine. High dollar value reversible decisions, there's a governance framework, someone else can make it. As part of the governance, we'll capture it. So I end up spending time only on very few decisions and I'm very actively how I manage my time. So these are 3 or 4 things that I think I'm working with my teams to impart and I get better at it as they practice it as well.
I'm not sure whether Michael caught my wry smile on this, the smirk that I had on my face as you were talking. If you guys don't believe that Sampath is writing a book on leadership soon, you can stay that way. I am not betting on that. I think this is truly a masterclass. Okay, let's go into, I must maybe do a quick rapid fire. Let's agree with you for a minute that you're not writing a book on leadership. What are you writing a book on?
History.
What part of history?
Look, I think there are different parts of history. Right now, I'm deep about Indian history, the early part of 100, 200 AD on how advanced it was. I'm also spending time on Chinese history. I think history is a great way to make new mistakes and not make the same mistakes. Everyone thinks what they're doing it for the first time. But when you have such a long arc of history, a lot of things we see in the world around us has happened before, or certain patterns have happened before, whether it's in business, whether in politics, whether in war. It's a pretty consistent theme. So I find history very exciting.
Fascinating. I agree with you. Also, if you are a good student of history, then you also know how not to panic because it has already happened. So you know.
Yeah, and also, when people talk, oh, this is a black swan event, it's once in 1,000 years. It's rarely a once in 1,000 year event.
Yeah.
It's happened before, even the COVID, it's such a, the plague happened before, we've had multiple avian flus along the way. So I think history is something important. Also, I think countries benefit if they know their history. It gives them a grounding, it tells them where they've come from and where they need to go to. So I think it's also important. Look, America is going to celebrate its 250th birthday next year in 26. And I think just the phenomenal heritage and how America has come to become the most powerful and probably one of the greatest empires ever. It's important we learn our history.
Absolutely, great. So from recent history, any advice that you received that has been immensely valuable to you that you would love to share with us?
I think this whole concept that when it's good, it's not that good. When it's bad, it's not that bad is something personally I enjoy a lot because sometimes there's this tendency to overreact, get over happy or very sad. And I think you just learn from history that there's always a moderation. Things always come back to the mean. There's a reversion to mean. And I think that helps a lot. You don't tend to overreact in situations. And especially in jobs like mine, it's quite easy to overreact.
Yeah, I'm almost changing my rapid fire questions than what I had. I have to ask you this. So if you were to now go back and do magically have a dinner with a historical figure, who would that be?
I think Mahatma Gandhi. I think I've studied him a lot. I've read everything about him a lot. but I still don't feel I understand the person because there's so many contradictory things that he has. I mean, he fought the British, which was almost impossible to do, back then.
He fought the British without fighting.
He fought the British without fighting. He also galvanized India, which was very fragmented into many small princes and small ruling states all over the place. He brought them together. But he also had some pretty regressive views on medicine and things like that. So how can a person be so smart and at the same time, not take advantages of science and other things? So someone I've learned a lot, love to have dinner with him. He's a frugal eater, so I'll probably eat before I go have dinner.
By the way, I don't know if I ever told you this, but the district I come from in India is called Gandhi district.
Oh, there you go.
Right, and the only district where there is prohibition in Maharashtra. Okay, coming back, maybe the last question. If India wins the Champions Trophy, who do you think will be the player of the series?
Look, I think this will be Rohit's farewell.
Wow, I knew you will say that.
I think it'll be his farewell. He's going to have a good thing. He's practicing. He's hitting straight. So I think he's going to have a good run. So I think him or Shreyas Iyer, if he gets in, I think those two.
Awesome. Oh, very insightful. No, fantastic. Sampath, thank you so much for this. You don't know how important this is for me, for everyone at Prodapt, but also for the entire industry, for people who will watch it. I think they will pick. I'm going to play this back in my head after this chat. I think there were some remarkable words and sentences that you've used, which will probably remain in the digital realm for a long time for all of us to use.
Manish, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.